So Pluto is going back into Aquarius on the 19th of November, and this is going to signal for us some major evolutionary changes, not only on an individual level, but also on a collective level. So this video, I'm going to be going through the transition from Pluto in Capricorn to Pluto in Aquarius. I'm going to be talking about the themes of massive social reorganization and change, addressing why Pluto through Capricorn is going to amplify the collective and individual need for self-empowerment and a stronger sense of individual authenticity, and how the world stage is going to reorganize itself and how governments are going to form different alliances with different governments, essentially a complete reordering of the world structure. Now, these are themes that if you pay attention to and start aligning with, you're going to be able to be in a better position to deal with the rapid changes that are going to take place with Pluto entering Aquarius. So let's take a look at where Pluto transitioning out of Capricorn and moving into Aquarius is going to take place and look like. Now, we've already had Pluto entering Aquarius twice, and we've already started to see the onset of Aquarius energy. But now that Pluto will be staying in Aquarius, this energy is going to be more concentrated and consistent within our lives. The first thing is when Pluto was in Capricorn, we saw the attention around what our institutions, what types of governmental structures, how the way that we order ourselves, the way that we even operate in terms of social trust within our societies, all of these patterns emerged to the surface, and we started to see exactly where the cracks are, right? Where there's abuse of power, where patterns have become outdated and senescent, they no longer are in alignment with the world that we live in today, and also looking at the actual fabric of how our society is put together, the emotional connection. Now that Pluto comes into Aquarius, the themes shift more towards an individuation process. In other words, we've taken a look at all of these structures and these orders and these institutions, recognized where they've outdated, they're senescent, and then Aquarius says, okay, well, we need to reform this. We need to reorder this. So a strong energetic emphasis will start to be placed on how do we decentralize ourselves and break apart from patterns and attachments and emotional connections that no longer work for us or resonate with us, and also addressing where it is that we need to grow beyond the current limitations that we have within our social spheres, but also on an individual level as well. So a stronger need for innovation regarding technology, which you will see it rapidly grow. You'll start to see a stronger attention towards self-improvement and self-regeneration in terms of how do we break out of thoughts and beliefs and patterns that are part of the past, and how do we re-energiate and how do we regenerate these patterns in a stronger and more structured way. This is a part of the empowerment process that tends to be missed when you're looking at the Aquarius archetype. Now, one of the things that I like to integrate when it comes to understanding Aquarius is the Promethean myth, or the story of Prometheus. So Prometheus in Greek mythology was an Olympian god that had stolen fire and gave it to humanity. This was a way to essentially accelerate and illuminate the consciousness, which in many ways is a beautiful association with the Aquarius archetype, in the sense that Aquarius wants to break apart, reorder, and open up and accelerate and bring new horizons to the way that we experience our world. Oftentimes that can be a very disturbing thing, especially when the way that you keep things together gets challenged by outside forces to reorder and rediscover and open up your horizons, right? It can be very disturbing and destabilizing, especially if you are somebody that needs that consistent, routine, pattern recognition within your life. Aquarius wants to break it apart and bring new dimensions into play so that we can experience broader horizons. In the same way, Pluto entering Aquarius, the myth of Prometheus will become stronger and more potent within the consensus reality, and you'll actually see it start to manifest even stronger within your own life. So there's a few ways that this myth, I think, is very important to understand, analyze, and that is that as we move into this Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius energy, The Promethean myth speaks to the activation of new knowledge, the activation of new discovery, new horizons, and new experiences. And this means challenging the consensus hold that we have on our reality. This is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about Pluto through Capricorn was exposing these structures. Pluto in Aquarius wants to reform it, change it up, and give it a new, fresh coat of paint, as it were. That's why Aquarius is about transformation. It's the same object just being formed into something new and has to break it apart. So this myth of Prometheus comes in and we get access to new insights. We get access to new dimensions of reality. We get the opportunity to expand our consciousness and our conscious awareness beyond our current definitions. For us individually, this also means being able to awaken that flame within inside of yourself. For most of the part of our lives, we've spent our sense of purpose, our sense of destiny, our sense of meaning defined from the outside in. When you experience a Promethean awakening within yourself, it's a complete decentralization of your conditioning and an awakening or a realization of your internal flame. Pluto through Aquarius has the opportunity to give each and every one of us this experience. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you just get it. It comes through a process of breaking down old structures within your worldview that are embedded in your life and being able to align with a completely new set of dynamics and structures, innovative ways of thinking, so that you can actually accelerate beyond that comfort zone. Now, one of the interesting things that this myth actually speaks about is Zeus challenging and actually punishing Prometheus for this act of giving humanity illumination, which is that when Prometheus gives this fire, Zeus says, you can't do this. You can't give this illuminated conscious awareness to these mere mortals. And so in many ways, there's always going to be a response towards people who want to take this Promethean light and accelerate it into new ways of being. In other words, the old structures and old orders will want to act even more in regression, right, or response to this Promethean light. So what you will see in the collective is this kind of interesting story emerge between the old order and the new order trying to fight out for the stake of our future. And how this will play out within your own personal life is that constant challenge between, this feels comfortable and consistent and known versus try this out. This is a new experience. This is a new opportunity. This might feel a little bit scary. It's going to challenge your comfort zones. The idea here with Pluto and Aquarius is to break down those internalized structures and reinvent yourself in a completely new way. Now, Pluto's trine to Uranus for the first onset of Pluto and Aquarius is actually going to support this process quite a lot. Now, here are 4 sort of ways that I can encourage you to understand Pluto's transit into Aquarius and how you align with this Promethean energy, but also how you can start to become consciously aware of this sort of tectonic shift or this decentralizing energy that is going to bring people into newer communities, new ways of relating to each other, and also letting go of old attachments. In other words, the way that we have connected in a social level is going to break apart and we're going to form new social networks and social connections. So the first thing here with Pluto entering Aquarius is you need to have an open mind. You need to be able to have a curious mind that allows you to explore and adopt new ways of thinking, new ways of being. So challenge your ideas about what you thought was possible, what you thought was, what your life was about. Challenge any pre-existing beliefs that you've got and allow yourself to be, in a sense, open to new, innovative ideas, innovative experiences, innovative perspectives that can really, as I said, challenge your pre-existing structure and give you the opportunity to actually grow beyond your current state of mental, emotional being, essentially. And this goes for all areas of your life. You will absolutely see this happen within the collective, where there will be a stronger acceleration of technological companies that will say, oh, we can take people to the moon right now, or we can, we've just created these nanobots that you can put into your body and then it tells you where your cancer cells are, etc. This is a real thing. And it's a very beautiful expression of this myth of Prometheus, where on one hand, we get this beautiful flame that accelerates us, but it is also something that we need to be careful of. Fire can also burn us at the same time, especially when we're addicted to the novelty. So being mindful of new innovative ways of thinking, being curious, being open-minded, exploring things, challenging yourself, these are all great ways to address and embody the Pluto and Aquarius energy. Another one is self-reflection. The more that you have an individuated sense of self-understanding and that you prioritize giving space to learning more about yourself, this is a way that you can navigate this energy going forward, right? Aquarius is about breaking down what has become impressed on you and what you've been conditioned on you, and it is about forming and experiencing yourself from the inside out. So it's breaking out and seeing who you are in relation to the collective, right? This is awakening this inner fire. Part of this process requires you to have to also investigate and explore and pay attention to how you are individually growing and evolving for yourself. So self-reflection, self-awareness, self-understanding, any tools that promote that and help that, this is a really great way to accelerate and activate the Aquarius energy within yourself. Another way that I would say is very important with this Pluto and Aquarius energy is understanding your value structures. Okay? What are the things that you actually value? And starting to prioritize to be of service to those values so that you can start to build a world that is more in alignment with what actually resonates with you, rather than just this sort of bobbing around trying to figure out the meaning of life by external structures. Pluto and Aquarius will say you will no longer be able to find meaning in the external world if you're listening to what the world is about. You have to be able to connect with yourself, which is why number 2 is very important. So more self-discovery leads to a stronger and deeper connection to your personal value structures and the reasons why you prioritize them. Because as we move into a reorganizing of our social networks, we're going to start to find communities that actually align with who we resonate with and who we are. This is very important because when you have a community has a set of values. When your values align with that community, you find connection and cohesion. So the idea here is that as you're dropping into deeper states of self-understanding and you're becoming very aware of your values and your needs and understanding what it is that you actually want in your life, you can start to then form and collaborate with groups and organizations that actually represent the same thing. This means that your ability to actualize becomes accelerated because you're now in a group of people that think very much like you, that have the same sort of generalized outlook on life, and are also wanting to grow and mature and develop these unique Promethean ideas that are coming through their own individuation process. So as we journey through Pluto into Aquarius, there are actual 4 ways that Pluto will enact its evolution. In other words, create the necessary evolutionary changes that we'll adapt to and organize ourselves so that as we go through this experience, we will be reshaped by this transit. So the first way that Pluto will express itself through evolutionary change is something in the lines of cataclysmic events. These are types of scenarios or situations that are unavoidable and are going to essentially manifest in different ways that changes the entire landscape of your individual world or the collective. This is not something that is good or bad, it is just the fundamental expression of Pluto. Oftentimes these cataclysmic events happen because there's so much repression on a certain energetic pattern that it creates like a volcanic effect where the energy just bursts through and it completely ruptures and severs all outdated patterns that are related to the attachment. So you'll see in the world that there will be some cataclysmic events that will, as I said, reorganize and rechange the landscape. And from that point onwards, you and me will have to then adapt to those reorganized patterns and form new realities in relation to what has cataclysmically happened. Okay? And as I said, most of the time these patterns exist and they create change and then you just have to roll with it. That's just how it is. Another way that Pluto actually enacts its evolution is more through sort of progressive attachment and curiosity. In other words, and this was how I will see this manifest individually for us as an individual person, and also in the collective as well, but you'll notice this more in terms of your own personal life, which is you start to progressively recognize that within your life, there are certain patterns and emotional attachments that you know are not actually beneficial to you. You know that are outdated, they're no longer working, and you're like, right, that's it, I'm committed to making a change. That's the impulse that comes up. And then what happens is you start to form these progressive emotional attachments to new models of reality that represent the change that you would like to have within yourself. As you explore these models and as you allow yourself to become more attached to what they represent, what they mean, and you start internalizing it, you start to see the subtle shifts within yourself start to take place. You break apart, you decentralize away from these old ways of being, these habits, etc., and you start aligning with something that feels more alive and more real and more authentic. This is the empowerment piece that I was talking about earlier. Right, another way that Pluto is going to manifest itself in terms of its evolutionary intention is through limitations and confrontation. This is similar to the cataclysmic events, but not to the degree where the environment changes so much that it's actually sometimes difficult to digest and process because, the explosion was so big. This is more in the sense that you actually come into where the structures of our lives, the institutions, the pathways that you are walking literally become limitations. It's like it's just stopped. You're just stopping there. You can't get past it. There's a block, and what it's doing is it's creating this feedback loop back onto yourself to say, hey, I actually need to start confronting and addressing why this pattern is being blocked within my life. Again, as this process starts to manifest within your world, you start to then, from this feedback experience, address what it is that is limiting. You then start to look at patterns of reality that actually represent and symbolize liberation from these patterns. And when you start to experience that, you start to then move towards and progressively internalize new models of reality, new ways of being, new ways of addressing your life. And that is how change will actually manifest within yourself. So it's a pretty cool experience. I would definitely say the majority of us will experience number 1 and number 2 and number 3 of this process. Now, Pluto through Aquarius will also manifest through what is called timed activation events. These are more something to do with Pluto going through Aquarius and hitting the south node of Neptune, or Pluto and Aquarius making an opposition to Jupiter. And what happens is there's a sort of event that very much like the cataclysmic, but not at such a grand scale. It's more like we experience a sudden shift. We experience, whether it's externally in terms of the global world or an internal way within ourselves, but there is an activation or an event that takes place that rapidly changes our association and our attachment to that reality, to that world, or to that behavior or emotional connection. And this timed event, as I said, through like transits or activations, it will change the landscape, and then you will now need to begin reordering your reality based on the set of insights that you received, the emotional changes that you went through, or in most cases, it's going to be something along the lines of this happened, here you have this reality, and maybe, well, hopefully you can internalize it within your life and start digesting it. Mostly those are the cases that I've seen where we just have this like event and we're like, whoa, how do we deal with this, right? It takes time to integrate and process. It's pretty cool how Pluto enacts itself relative to these 4 states. And it's going to be really interesting to see how these different states will actually express itself, not only individually for you, but also in the collective over the coming years. So another aspect that I want to bring into conversation is the shadow element or shadow side of Aquarius. 3 of these elements I think are important to address because they speak to the themes that we're going to be experiencing and also the challenges that we'll probably face in terms of our psychological and emotional growth and maturation. In other words, how we grow emotionally and psychologically relative to this Pluto through Aquarius transit we're going through. So the first thing is this interesting intersection between organizations, companies, and technological companies particularly, and their progressive overreach and domination in the social sphere around what power they have. So you can already start to see things like all the AI companies, putting themselves up, creating these wonderful technological advancements, and it's like, how many of them align with a ethical way of being? How many of them will cut corners and invest in specific industries that we know are detrimental to our environmental health, but are in favor of profit and in favor of essentially destroying economic structures. Like in areas, you'll see a company will maybe will come into a certain area, and they will completely eradicate the people that are living there and build an environment because it's an AI accelerated idea that's very important, right? It's like the emotional and psychological drive to have this Promethean flame become so developed within our world that it will cut corners, as I said, right? There's going to be, it turns into a Frankenstein type of experience where the science overrides the natural, ethical, and biosphere of our world. So as Pluto moves through Aquarius, it's going to be very interesting to see how companies and the rules and regulations are actually developed around what type of power they have access to. I mean, you can already start to see it to a certain degree, right? If you have you can go onto the internet and have your voice recorded using AI, and then it can change that voice to different sounds, different tones. Now, what's happened is a lot of criminals have actually, they phone you and they record your voice using this AI technology. And then what they'll do is they will then have it ring, say your child, for instance, and say, hey, this is so-and-so, you need to go to this place over here. And because you're maybe a kid or maybe an adult, you can't even tell the difference between the AI and the actual human being itself. So these are some of the interesting intersections that I know are going to happen with the shadow side of Aquarius, which is, again, technological advancement over, say, the human ethical dilemmas that we will face, okay? Another issue that will definitely show itself regarding Pluto moving into Aquarius and the shadow side of Aquarius is that technology will consistently keep creating that division on a social level, and people will find more connection to the internal and internet world rather than the actual real world that we're existing in. Aquarius loves to bring us out of the physical and into the sky, right? So most of us are jacked up to the internet, we're constantly online, and most of our world is now spent there. Some of the shadow side of this experience is a complete disconnection, where we're losing connection emotionally to us as human beings, and we're reordering ourselves based on social likes, we're reordering ourselves based on, just a different set of social interactions that are absent of the emotional connection. So it's going to be very important for us to remain centered, where you have a balance between your internet existence and your internet life, and also remaining in the physical world itself, with the physical and natural world being present because you're part of your body is still here. Do you know what I mean? Now, the other dilemma that I think is also important here is connecting to what you already see in the world, unfortunately, but naturally what happens in Aquarius in terms of its shadow pattern is othering. Okay, it's like a division where different social groups have different value structures, and then they look at other social groups and they say, I'm better than you, or I value this, you don't value this, we're at odds with each other, I stand here, you stand there, and there's this disconnect that unfortunately takes place, which can be fueled by technology, and it can also be fueled by the way that our limbic systems, which are deeply biological, are not equipped for the evolutionary sort of reality of what technology can actually provide and what it does. So our emotional realities can be easily hijacked, creating perspectives and emotional responses to things that we don't even know that we're honestly responding to, because if we were noticing how media and how social interactions or social social propaganda can work, it can absolutely create fragmentation and disintegration. So this is some of the shadow dynamics that can take place, especially around othering, which is that group is, you are not as good as me, and that's how it works, right? And so we create this more distant issue that takes place there. So the thing is that it's a slippery slope in one way, but empathy and connection is going to be a very important quality and commodity in our human interactions as we go through Aquarius. And that's something that I think we just have to be wary of and mindful of, especially when it comes to navigating the intersection between the more distant connection that technology brings and the need to actually experience human connection. Ultimately, our biological form requires that human connection. But again, it can be easy to start just distancing ourselves and then becoming so detached that we lose that sense of humanitarian energy within us. And you can really start to see it in the world as it is. I think it's one of the things that that's going to be difficult to navigate the shadow element. What is the role of astrology, things like human design, other tools of self-development and self-awareness in the context of Pluto and Aquarius? And I think it plays a significant role. And the reason why I say that is because if you think to what I was just talking about earlier around Pluto and Aquarius and the shadow side of it, you're more likely to be taken hold of by algorithms. You're more easily to be convinced, or what's the word that I'm looking for, right? When you're taken hold of, right? You're possessed almost by ideological truths and perspectives. And your emotional systems can be absolutely hijacked with technological advancements. I mean, you just need to go on Instagram for a bit or any form of social media, and after 5 minutes of watching or 3 minutes of watching videos on XYZ, you can start to build a worldview that's sort of, oh my gosh, this is a really big thing, and you start to become emotionally invested in it. So understanding tools like astrology, human design, tools that create self-reflection and self-understanding gives you a greater edge to be able to navigate these challenges. It also means that you can start to allow yourself more activation, more agency, more connection with groups and organizations and structures, network structures that are actually aligned with what gives you meaning. The more that you actually discover the meaning within yourself, the more that you actually start to work on and prioritize your own individual core sense of navigation in the world, the better off you're going to be in this transit. You're going to be able to navigate the decisions and the challenges better. You're going to be able to navigate exactly how to make choices in connection with the right communities. And from then onwards, it's just more of a compounding effect. So deepening your self-understanding, deepening your reflection through tools like astrology are going to be incredibly popular, and you'll see that it will start to catch even more momentum as Pluto goes into Aquarius. And we all know that Aquarius as an archetype has a co-rulership with astrology just because of the nature of observation and the detachment and the collective, etc. So that's a very important thing to note. And the role of these tools is going to be very important as we move through Aquarius. So I wanted to circle back to the Promethean myth again and linking it up to how Pluto in Aquarius speaks very strongly to finding your authentic path. Now, I've talked about this earlier throughout this video, and I've talked about how self-empowerment and a strong value around individual authenticity is going to be a focus as Pluto moves through Aquarius. And there's lots of reasons for why that will take place. Empowerment, breaking apart, challenging yourself, coming into new ways of being, noticing patterns that you feel are more healthier for yourself, and aligning with them. Part of this also means understanding the dynamic between groups and communities and your individual purpose. So again, tools like astrology, human design, other tools that promote self-understanding definitely paves the way for you being more connected to that Promethean flame that you have within inside of yourself. Pluto and Aquarius will create that space or hold that space where there is the potential and the opportunity to really live in alignment with what is your authenticity. Now, that word itself can sound all glamorous and fantastic, but in reality, it's aligning with something, it's aligning with a reality that deeply speaks to your inner truth. And a big part of Pluto in Aquarius will need you to have that connection to the self so that you can align with groups, as I've said before, and communities that actually resonate with you. Part of the dilemma is actually feeling isolated and feeling detached and non-connected to groups that you feel that you can belong to. And most of the time, that's, again, just either a holding on to your own individuality and the desire to not want to sacrifice that within the group dynamic. But that is something that we will experience with Pluto entering Aquarius. We will look at society as a whole and we'll try to understand how we as individuals can fit into that group dynamic. One of the things with Pluto and Aquarius is the stealing of the Promethean fire. In other words, Aquarius can represent this accelerated process I've discovered before or shared with you before, but it also speaks to how you need to grow and grab that fire and take hold of it and integrate it into yourself. So as I said, understanding your value structures, being able to follow systems that promote self-understanding and self-reflection, these are ways that you can start to accelerate and understand, and also then go and grab that Promethean flame and bring it into yourself so that you can actualize, and therefore you can start to navigate in alignment with groups and networks that actually represent your truth and that you can live in more of an authentic reality. In other words, not living in a world where you need to mask, where you need to pretend, where you need to hold up social cues in order to exist. You can already start to see that in the collective, and I'm sure some of you probably even resonate with your personal experiences of recognizing your neurodivergence as an example, and allowing yourself to be more comfortable with some of the ways that in the past you've masked to hide some of those neurodivergent qualities. And now you realize, hold on, I can actually just be myself and I don't need to validate that or ask for other people to acknowledge it for me. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. You know what I mean? This is very much a big part of this dilemma between how do I fit into a group dynamic and be authentic, and how do I also not let go of my authenticity or my individuality? And that intersection is something that will absolutely become emphasized with this energy. And as I said again, following these suggestions that I've made will improve and also give you a stronger sense of connection when it comes to finding the right tribe, the right group that resonates with you. So, final thoughts on Pluto entering Aquarius. Rapid changes, some big themes that are going to be taking place, paying attention to how the social order is going to be reconstructed, paying attention to what is the most empowered version of yourself and how can you challenge these pre-existing notions of what you thought your life was about or what you're capable of, and exploring new ways of thinking, exploring new innovative perspectives, allowing yourself to have an open mind, be very curious, and lead with that. These ways of being improves your alignment with the rapid changes that's going to take place. Pluto transitioning out of Capricorn is not about the social structures and where it's gone wrong. It's what can we do about it and how are we going to reorganize this? And you can already start to see it in the world as it stands, that there's a lot more energy moving towards new, fresh ideas, new, fresh perspectives, new opportunities, and that will become more progressively present within our lives. Pluto through Aquarius will have a strong impact on our ability to leave a legacy behind. Okay, so what is the type of legacy that you want to leave behind, right? What is the type of meaning that you want to connect to, that when you wake up every day and you serve that set of values and those principles and you follow something that feels authentically awoken and aligned within yourself, that leads you to leaving a legacy. One of the funny things about Aquarius is it's the archetype of actual frozen consciousness that over time can just stay there. So this is a profound moment where you get the opportunity to create a resurrection of your own existence in every moment, to leave a lingering memory and legacy for the rest of us to remember and experience and to be embedded into this world. Pluto in Aquarius creates that space. It also challenges our pre-existing notions of what we've thought we need to do and how we should do it. And that's going to be difficult at times, especially when there are cataclysmic events taking place. They're going to feel shocking. They're going to feel disorientating. They're going to feel oftentimes inhumane. These are part of the patterns that we will process through. And eventually, at some point, Pluto will push the button to eventually say, this is no longer going to work for us, and you need to find new ways. And we will find new ways. There will be stronger innovation. There will be stronger ways in which we will structure things going forward. And in about 200 years from now, most people look back at this time and actually study the events that took place. And, who knows? They might look at it and say, wow, they were really silly. They really were outdated, because that's how we look at people 200 years ago in one way. But either way, Pluto in Aquarius, I think, is going to be an incredibly powerful time. There's lots that's going to change. And for the most part, the thing that you can pay attention to is, what do you want to change within your world? So I've got another set of videos for you to digest. If you want to learn about what Pluto through the houses means, I've got videos coming up. And all you need to do is just go and look at your Pluto in your house, and I'll break down exactly what I think Pluto in Aquarius will represent for you. All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video and it gave you something to think about. Until the next one, take care. Bye-bye.